Why can't a real rally be sustained in this market? What did the Fed do that made this stock market so unreal? How do we trade our way out of this market or try to get into an area where we can make some money? Hang on. This is not financial nor professional advice. This video is for entertainment only. Hey everyone. I contend that the reason we can't get a real rally with follow through that consistently goes up is because this market was founded or back in 2020 on a false basis. And that false basis was the Federal Reserve literally announced that they would do anything to keep the stock market from going down. In other words, they weren't just going to blunt the pain of the situation that was happening in real life. They were going to replace real life. And that's why things that were stay at home and not really going out there into the world did well. The Fed fed into that. They played into that. They did anything and everything. They gave child credits. They sent a check to my business. They sent a check to me personally. I'm sure many of you had the same experience. And people had money that they did not earn. Now, an important concept is that money is created from debt. You go and you borrow some money, and that money is literally created by the Federal Reserve. And what backs up the money at that point is the assets you've used against it, that you've used to borrow it for. You bought a house, you bought a car, something like this. And so literally all the money is backed up by assets, okay? It's impossible to back it up by gold. There's enough gold to back up all the assets in the world. That's just obvious. And so they had to go to this ledger system where debt supports money because people have to pay that money back. And if they don't pay it back, they give up the asset that they used to purchase the money for. So you got this situation where you have all these assets backing up all this money. Now, that's fine, but the problem comes in when the Federal Reserve says, oh, we have an emergency. We're going to run low on money because of the health situation. Okay, there's going to be lockdowns. Things are going to come to a standstill. We can't let the stock market go down. Okay, and so they start printing money that is not backed up by anything. It's not backed up by debt. It's not backed up by somebody's promise to pay it back. It's backed up by nothing. It's backed up by the full faith and credit of the United States, which is good until it gets to be such a large amount that becomes in danger and that the credit rating of the United States could be lowered. So you have this situation where the country has gone from having like 7 or 8 trillion of debt to having 30 trillion of debt since 2008. In 2008, they saved the economy, but they did just enough to keep it from going into a Great Depression and not a lot more. This time, they said, well, we saw how well that worked in 2008. Let's really do it this time. And they quadrupled the amount, at least, maybe more, of what they did in 2008. And it's just too much. You have all this money and it's inflated. And it's inflated because you have the same amount of assets roughly, but you have more money. And so each dollar is worth less. And so you're going to have inflation because you need more dollars to buy the same goods because there's less. Each dollar on a per capita basis is based and backed up by fewer and fewer assets or a portion of the assets. And so you have to have more dollars to buy the goods you need. Okay, and that is a long-term problem. Milton Friedman said that inflation is always a monetary problem. Okay, it's due to too much money printing not being backed up by assets, and it turns out that he's been very right. And the idea that you can print all this money and not have a massive effect. They printed about 30% of the money that's in circulation now, digitally mostly, that's in circulation, it has been printed in the last 2 or 3 years. Okay, some of it goes back to 2008, I'm sure, but we have 30% of this money that's just been printed, and that's why it's going to take a long time, at least a year or two, to wear this inflation down sufficiently. I think the inflation is going to come down gradually. I think, and it'll be a process of the interest rates rising and inflation coming down, and they're meeting somewhere in the middle. I don't think it's going to go up to 8%. You put 8% interest on a $30 trillion debt, you're going to break the country. So they literally can't do it. They're going to have to put up with a little more inflation than they want, but gradually it'll bring it down. I think they'll go to 4 or 5%, maybe 6% at the outside, but that would pretty much break the country. You start going over 4% and the economy slows dramatically, and you have inflation being reduced by recession. So we have this fake uprising going up in the stock market, and now we're going to go to this more or less fake decrease in the economy. And the economy's got to run on the productivity and not what the Federal Reserve decides to print. In the next video, it's going to be somewhat strange simply because I'm returning to my old friend SQQQ, which is shorting the 100 largest companies on the NASDAQ. I may also short the S&P 500, which is SPXS, and that's shorting the S&P 500. Which is a broad range of the market and captures every segment of the market, almost, at least the large cap market, I should say. But I'm going to explain why it's good for me personally, but it turns out that it also will be good for the country, as the stock market going up in a straight line right now is not to the Fed's thinking, and the Fed rules the market. And that's why you may as well do ETFs right now. There are some stocks that can overcome some of this, and I like my solar stocks. Canadian Solar, CSIQ is an example, but I will go into this during the next video. But mainly I'm going to focus on shorting the 100 largest companies of the NASDAQ through SQQQ, my favorite, because I just know that stock so well. It's a triple leveraged inverse fund, and this market is so fake. Everything it does is a response to the Fed. That's why all the news broadcasts and all the business broadcasts are about the Fed, and the Fed, and how it affects the Fed, and how it might affect their thinking about what they're going to do. And I am so tired of the Fed right now, as you can tell, that if the stock market goes up in a linear fashion, that's a bigger reason for them to really increase the interest rates. So you're left with shorting, in my mind. At least I'm left with shorting. Thanks for listening and watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you're notified of future videos. And good luck to us all.